Life is a poem. It just is. Weight all writers carry like water, to and from on a road towards something bigger than us. Sometimes it's understanding. Others, it's questions. An answer at times flowing forward with one page, one thought, and the rest could quite possibly be history in ink. Hello from Chicago. It's time to pass the sopapillas. Join us for a conversation with none other than United States Youth Poet Laureate Emeritus, Amanda Gorman.
I think poetry for so many students and young people can be the first place where they have that witness, even if it's just themselves, to be able to speak and voice what was unknown and feel held in their pain. And I think that's where the medicine and the power comes from.
This episode, we are live from the Obama Center in Chicago for a one-on-one between laureates. Let's listen in.
Hi.
Hello.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yes. Well, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here this morning. I don't even know where to begin because it's such a pleasure to meet you and to have you here. Now, what I want to talk a little bit about is what it means to be a laureate. Because what it means to be a laureate is it's more than just us getting up and reciting poetry. We kind of carry the emotional weight of the people that we're sharing with. Because we use literacy and words as a guise to get in to do real heart work. That's what we're doing. That's what we're using this self-expression as a way to heal the scars and bruises that we carry on our heart in that way.
Whoa, can we just, that was a poem. That was a poem. Oh my goodness. I don't think that was a question. I think that was a masterpiece right there.
Oh, well, see, I like to think about the healing that our art form carries. It's more than just words. It's more than just poems and rhymes and things. It's about authentic and sincere self-expression. And that's the road that we take to get to where that healing begins. But before we get to that healing, I want to know a little bit about little Amanda. Tell me about before there was poetry, before you were laureate, what inspired you when you were little?
Yeah, well first, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm giving you an air hug. When my mom heard I was doing this, she was like, "Can I come?" And I was like, "Mother, you are doing the Lord's work, teaching sixth graders. They need you, but this will be filmed." So she's here in person. But to answer your question, it kind of to connect it to my mom and her students, little Amanda, you know, she was going through it. I had a speech impediment, so I talked funny. I was small and kind of scrawny and like deeply black, which I love, but at the time going to kind of predominantly white school was a bit difficult. And so I think poetry really gave me a safe space because when I spoke aloud, my voice sounded so much different from the people around me, even in my own family. It was kind of like having my own private accent. But when I wrote poetry, I felt like this is my authentic voice. It's not wrong, it's not distorted, it's not impedimented. There's something powerful here. And so I'm really grateful for the home that it gave me. And funnily enough, poetry kind of became a form of speech therapy for me where I would remember and recite poems by Maya Angelou, or I would recite the song Aaron Burr, Sir, from Hamilton, because I couldn't say my ers. So I was like, if I can do this song, then I'm there. And so poetry just wasn't kind of a hobby or a play. It was therapy, it was pathology, it was home. And so I'm so grateful for it.
Oh, see, what I love mostly about poetry is that it's a way for us to play. It's a way for us to have these words and see what kind of fun we can have. And that's how we get in the back door, because sometimes we have to put down our walls and put down the guards that we carry so that we can get to the place where we're comfortable enough to authentically and sincerely express ourselves. Tell me about the play, the fun that's in poetry in that way.
Well, I so love what you said about play giving you kind of a back door, because I feel so often in marginalized communities, we're not allowed through the front.
Yeah.
And so where play comes in is it can give us access into previously inaccessible places. And so, for example, I think about how poetry is typically taught traditionally in schools. You maybe read like Edgar Allan Poe or about a wheelbarrow or like Shakespeare, and it's pretty dusty, crusty, dead, white, pale, like it's giving not alive.
Yes.
And then you have students who are kind of like, what about Kendrick Lamar?
Yes.
What about Rita Dove? What about Tony? You know, bringing that into the conversation. And so poetry becomes the ways in which our own colloquial rhapsodies that we speak in our everyday lives get to enter institutions, get to enter the classrooms, and get to keep us and that culture alive.
Well, that's what I love about this art form, is because it meets us where we are.
Yes.
It helps us to talk about our experience and our emotions in a way that can be safe. And we use the similes and metaphors to protect ourselves when it's time for us to talk about that real emotion, those real heart and the things that we deal with in that way. Now, you were the Youth Poet Laureate. You've been doing this since you were even shorter than you are now. Yes, I got respect for that.
Oh, not you coming for me, the shade. Okay,
No,
I'm joking.
I don't mean it like that. But what I mean is you founded One Page and
Yes.
One Pen, One Page when you were young. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, my mom was still teaching at that time as well, and I really loved coming into her classroom, and I would like do writing workshops, which was so funny because I was like 4'10", and so I had these 6th graders who thought I was like a 5th grader teaching them. I'm like, I'm a grown woman. I assure you, I've gone through puberty and it was hard. And so I learned how to be in a classroom with students and how poetry can really explode in their eyes. And so I started a community organization, One Pen, One Page, which would bring writing supplies, books, pens, and workshops into schools, and we do workshops. And now that I'm kind of, I think, more like vested in the platform that I have, I was able to kind of funnel that energy into Writing Change Initiative with Estee Lauder, and we're able to fund a lot of the organizations that kind of gave me my leg up when I was a young Amanda. And so it's about like lifting as we climb. And so I'm really grateful for having that micro experience that I was able to kind of blow up when power came to me.
Well, we talk about this art form that we deal with being heart work. Tell me about your heart work, about the stuff that you do to help us heal in that way.
Number one is therapy, very consistently, which helps a lot. But I love this verbiage that you have around heart work of looking at poetry as an active mission and not as a kind of stagnant, stoic artifact.
Oh, it's a living, breathing
It's a
art
living,
form.
breathing.
Yes.
You know, Maya Angelou has this quote that I love, which is she says, words are more than things. They get in your hair, they get in your clothes, they get into your curtains, and they get into you. And so we have to be very intentional while being open about the words that we use, because that heart work is so powerful. But what I find with the heart work is it's to me as delicate and high stakes as the work involved in a heart surgery, because you're opening somebody up, you're making them vulnerable. And I know when I'm working with the student, one word can raise them up or tear them down, and they'll remember that. Yeah. And so it's my job to do that heart work with them with care, intent, meticulousness, and compassion as much as I can.
You know, I work at a Native American community school in Albuquerque, and one of the things that I found to be hard was to help these students find their voices. Because sometimes, especially in that demographic and specific student body that I deal with, they're very reserved, they're very quiet, and I found it hard to get them to find their voice and speak from their heart. What do you do to help students find their voices in that way?
I've experienced what you've experienced a lot, and it's a really interesting phenomenon. And the first thing I do is register that reluctance or that reservation that I might see in a student is not their own. It's taught, it's learned, it's socialized. Typically, if you meet a student where they've grown up in an environment that's preserved their play and preserved their childhood, they're able to kind of rambunctiously share that with you, as we just saw in that very cute video. But I find in a lot of marginalized, underserved communities, that reservation isn't to come off as cold or unwilling, it's a defense mechanism to survive in a very hard situation. And so my first job is to honor that. And instead of tearing down the wall, investigate why it's there in the first place, and try to create a space in which the student can understand what's going on in their own psychology and feel safe enough to bring down that wall because they know there's something worthy on the other side.
Oh, yes, yes. We're like, what we do is we share that inspiration. It's not about us and that poem. It's not about what we're doing. It's about this art form. And it's about the healing that can happen not only from the people that take up the pen, but when they hear what we do, it inspires them to do the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. But one of the things that I noticed, because I like to do what I do in detention centers and prisons and things, and what I learned the hard way is that sometimes I went in there to do that kind of heart work, and what we were doing is busting people open and having them delve into their emotions, and then I went home. Yeah. And I left them there sitting with those feelings and sitting with those emotions. And I learned that the grounding and the closing and the helping us put things back together after we blew them all up was just as important.
Absolutely.
As the self-expression in that way. What do you do to help, see, what we do this heart work, how do you protect your heart? How do you make it so that you can recharge your batteries so that you can keep doing that work like that?
Yeah, I think there's so interesting points that you just brought up, which is this idea that really was purported by Black women during the civil rights movement, which is how and when I enter. How do I enter into a mission and a project and a movement? And also, how do I exit when my time has done what needs to be done? And I think it's a really interesting question with children because you want the closure, you want them to have that moment in which all those messy pieces were brought out and they're able to kind of guard them in a way that feels like there's some resolution as opposed to being used and appropriated. Yes. And it's really difficult sometimes in the limited times that we have with students. And I think by tying my closure as a human being to their needs for closure as a human being, hopefully we're able to get there together. When I work with students, I try to think, what are kind of the stages of grief that we're going to go through together? And is there any way in which we can access a bit of that acceptance, a bit of that hope at the end? Not all of it. The stages of grief happen in spirals and cycles, not in chapters. But I find I'm most recharged when I'm able to find a way to kind of structure my engagement with students that allows for their recharging. Because, and I'm sure so many of you guys know this, when you spend time with the young people, I'm like, what are you eating? Where is this energy? How do I get on this like level of vivacity that you have in your life? And we soak it up as if it's osmosis. So if I'm recharging the young people around me, by definition, they will recharge me as well. And so we're all connected.
Yes. Can you think of a story of a young person that you've dealt with and saw that inspiration happen and this thing, this spark that we're talking about, how it works in that way?
Oh my gosh, so many examples. Let me try to think about one. I will say, especially when I was first starting working with my mom's students, it would be so interesting because you'd start with a student, and typically they would be kind of the young males in the classroom that were maybe some dysfunction was happening at home. And they will say stuff and kind of poke your buttons. And I remember like I was bent under a desk because I was grabbing something and I was like gonna surprise my mom so I wasn't seen. And one of those boys walked in and he said, "Screw Joe, like Miss Wicks," which is my mom. And the way I stood up, sir, come here. And I just looked him in the eye. I was like, forget that that's my mom. We don't talk about people that way. And he was the type of person in my mom's classroom where he might begin that way. By the end of the school year, by the end of the workshop, completely different transformation where you're like, the sweetness that is yours, the kindness that is yours has been reclaimed because you no longer feel the need to act out of aggression to protect yourself.
Yes.
You've grown bark and armor by being who you are. And so I loved that interaction with him.
Well, I think inherently in our art form, we demonstrate vulnerability and emotion in a way that gives other people the inspiration to do it themselves. And so sometimes we go into classrooms where they're like, psh, poetry is stupid, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But then we show them that you can be powerful and vulnerable and emotional, and that there's power there to be had. And at the end, they're like, sir, I just wrote this poem, Can I show you what I just wrote? I want to show it to you. And then we know we got them. It's like that's exactly where we want to be. And that's, as a poet, at first I came into poetry and I was just kind of writing. I would go into poetry slams. I got into poetry through the slam. And then from there, I got invited by teachers into classrooms to come recite poetry to my students. And so I didn't know nothing about teaching. I just would go in there and recite poetry. But once I saw a student have that light bulb above their head and don't want to put down the pen because they have so much to say, I saw the power and the medicine that's in this art form in this way. I want you to tell me about the medicine that you've seen like that.
Ooh, I love this idea of medicine, of a healing that we can give ourselves. I think there's such cathartic power in poetry that is still, quite frankly, understudied. I would love to see more clinical investigations of poetry and trauma, poetry and multi-generational abuse. What does it do to the mind? What does it do to the body and that connection to be able to put language to what before was unspoken, unconfessed, or unbelieved? And I really am interested in this idea around trauma, that it's not necessarily what happens to you, but it's what happens to you without an empathetic witness. Oh, wow. And I think poetry for so many students and young people can be the first place where they have that witness, even if it's just themselves, to be able to speak and voice what was unknown and feel held in their pain. And I think that's where the medicine and the power comes from.
You talked a little bit about empathy, and I've noticed that when I go into a classroom and when the students see each other stand up and express themselves authentically, it helps them understand what empathy is and where it comes from, because we can see each other be the human beings that we actually are. And the kid that you already had these ideas of who they are and what they do and why they do it, we get to see, wow, they really have a heart. They really have emotions. There's more than what I thought. And we start to see each other in different lights. And I think that that's what is beautiful about this art form, is because it helps us to see the humanity in one another in that way. And that's why we do what we do. And that's how powerful it is in that way. I want to know a story about one of your performances, or maybe not one of your performances, I'm sorry. I've been in an audience and I've seen a poet get up on the stage, and there's a moment where time stops and it's like they're speaking directly to me, and I feel it. I want to know about a time you were inspired by a poet.
I mean, how much time do we have?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, okay. Okay, here's one.
The Rolodex in your brain.
The Rolodex in my where are the black people? Okay, let me get a little specific. Let's be for real. So when I was in high school, we had a speaker come, and I don't know if you've heard of this amazing writer who you should, named Clint Smith. And he comes in, yes, I hear that clap, thank you. And what you have to understand about this man, if you don't know him, and you should, intellectual, slam poet, handsome to the gods, well-dressed. And I remember seeing him, and my first thought wasn't necessarily his poetry, My first thought was, that is my future husband. Like, I saw him, I was like, that's husby right there. But, you know, my lust aside, I heard him speak and I was just so lit on fire. And we spoke afterwards. And the crazy thing is, this must have been, oh my gosh, like 14 years ago. And when it came time for my poetry book to be reviewed by The Atlantic, he was the one that did the interview. Oh. And it was a crazy full circle moment. He remembered. I was like, don't remember my do eyes at you. But it was this huge thing where this poet that had really inspired me so deeply, we were now colleagues, and it was amazing.
Oh, see, the world spins in a beautiful way like that.
It won't give you your husband, but it will give you a great review of your poetry book, which honestly is all I can ask for.
One of the reasons we're here is we're trying to spread inspiration. We want people to see all the amazing work done by all the good people and to take that inspiration to use whatever gifts that they have. And so what I want to know is, I know it's a big question, but I want to know your why. Why do you do what you do, and what inspires you to keep doing it in that way?
The reason I struggle with this question is because more than even why do I do this, I cannot imagine an existence where I don't.
Yes.
I literally, do people ever ask you, like, what would you do if you were in the 1960s? What would, and some of you can actually attest to what they were doing then. What would you do in the 1800s? Yada, yada, yada. And I look at them, I'm like, the same dang thing. They might not have wanted to let me, they might not want to permit me, but I would nevertheless keep doing it. And so my why is, it's not even a cognitive choice. It's a spiritual calling, and that makes you transcend why and into the how. How do I get this done? How do I move forward? How do I lift as I climb? Because the why is an engine that never shuts off, but the how is the motor that executes it.
Oh, no, that's what I'm talking about, yes.
Listen, we can poeticize.
Speaking of poeticizing, I think it's time to demonstrate what we do in the power of this art form. So I'd love for you to share a poem with our audience, and then I'm gonna share one too when you're done.
Why are you going after me? That's so scary.
Oh, I can go first too, it don't matter.
Oh my gosh, well actually let me get it over with so I can enjoy yours
that'll work,
more.
yes.
Let's do it. I'd love that. Let's do it. I think my poem's over there. Let's do it, guys. Hey. How many of you have been to a poetry reading before? No shade, no shade. Oh my gosh. Okay, I think that's, if not all of the room, a consensus. Before I begin, I do want to set some ground rules, and these are more so invitations. Let me know if you have anything to add. As you probably know in poetry readings, since all of you have been to one before, it is not a monologue. It is a dialogue between the audience and the reader. And so what I want to do is to welcome you to participate in the poem. And if you want some ideas of how to do that, there's some few options. I'd love to hear if you have any as well. One is the T, snap, the yes. If you hear something that resonates with you, no pressure if you don't, leave me in quiet. It will be awkward, but it will be fine. Some people feel a little awkward doing the snap. I have weak fingers, so sometimes it doesn't work for me. The other thing you can do is what I call the dark chocolate mama noise, which many of y'all were doing already, which is the
Yeah.
You are in church and you are getting the spirit, okay? So we have some options. And if it's all right with you, I'd love them to continue this into your reading as well. Practice with me and get it right with him. Okay. This poem is called With This Bright Voice, and I wrote it when I became a UNICEF ambassador, and it is about honoring the child. With this bright voice, we speak purpose, audacious and audible. Our purpose, not just ethical, but eternal. For while every child is rightfully unique, the right to childhood is universal. We must care for every child everywhere, no matter their race, religion, or gender. In this, we never back down, we never surrender, because every child deserves a chance, and this world deserves a change. We might not always merit the earth, but every child shall inherit it. Quiet is the most dangerous violence, for the loudest bombs are those that fall in silence through ordeals of conflict and crisis, malady and misfortune. We fight for the family, and we organize for the orphan. We free the chained, and we feed the hungry. Because in this world of chaos, peace is ridden by the young. Any war is already lost if the cost is any kid killed. Compassion is not foolish weakness, it is our fiercest will. We shall grow our strength, not by how we triumph in war, but by how we try for peace. We shall sow our success not by how we suppress those hardest to rule, but by helping those hardest to reach. We shall show our spirit not by how we defeat our enemies, but by how we defend the exiled. Most importantly, we shall know ourselves not by how we champion those in power, but how we empower the child. This promise is our future. This planet is our home. Thus, let us not just pass on sure wisdom to the young. Let the young's wisdom surpass our own. With this bright voice, we speak, audacious, inaudible. What yesterday we might have called obstacles, today are opportunities that make us unstoppable. We respond in every strife and struggle, because every child is phenomenal, and to every child we are responsible. This is not just purpose. Now, more than ever, it is possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Respect.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing
so
that
much.
with us.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Y'all were great. I heard it.
See, I
Y'all
told
are
you about that
elites.
moment when the poet's on the stage and time just stops and they're speaking just to you. That's what I'm talking about right there. Now, I told you that I work at the Native American Community Academy in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and one of the things that I had before I worked there, I was like Mary Poppins. I was going from school to school to school, and I would spend a week in a school, and I would go to every English class and get the students to write, and then they'd get up and recite what they wrote, and then I'd go to a different school. Well, then I became somebody's everyday teacher. I became the teacher that I was their creative writing teacher all the time, and after I showed them my bag of tricks, I just became Mr. González. He wants us to write again, and it was hard to get those students to stand up and share what they wrote. And I had a really difficult time to help those students find their voice. And so I was inspired to write this poem here. And this poem is dedicated to the students of the Native American Community Academy. And it's a place where we teach education from a decolonized and indigenous perspective in that way. But this is the poem. On this American soil where prayers were stripped from tongues and fed back in the colonizer's language, cleansed, corrected, but the prayers were already danced into the soil. These indigenous students, they're still here. They're still singing. They're still sacred. They walk into my classroom carrying the constellations of their ancestors in their rib cages. Ancestral codes written in their bones, whispered in the spiraling scrolls of their DNA. Cosmic syllables humming low in their throats, spoken in the stars that illuminate their dreams. They are stardust and cornmeal, river, breath, and red clay. They come from pueblos older than this nation, from Dene chants and Apache winds, from Kiris prayers whispered into the canyons, echoed in grandmother's mutton stew. They come not to be loud, but to speak from their silence, from ceremony, from ceremonia, from generations unbroken by boarding school ash. And they sit with quiet fire, not silence, but fire, because their resilience is not loud. Their fire is not for spectacle. Their rage is not theatrical, but it is clearly spoken. And I seen it. I seen it in the poems that they write with the ink of resilience on paper that becomes a battlefield, a sweat lodge, a sacred site. They weave their words like prayer rugs that their grandmothers taught them to weave on looms of ancestral cords. And she told them stories of the nightmares that she survived. They called it education in those old Indian schools with children buried beneath the soil. And this new generation of indigenous children are here to heal from the traumas of their grandmothers, writing their medicine in every line. That medicina, they reclaimed religion and they rewrote it as movement, as decolonization, as freedom, as the right to feel joy without having permission. And they don't do this for applause. They do it for return. Return of land, return of language, return of love untouched by colonization. Their poetry is a revolt, a map, a reclamation. They speak of trauma as truth, of survival as inspiration, as inheritance. These students write, and they write to leave their mark on history that they are still here. They're laughing, they're learning, they're healing with their hearts bleeding on the page, writing authenticity into each and every heartbroken word. They turn classrooms into kivas, lessons into prayers, and they don't do it to raise their voices. They raise their spirits instead, and still we can hear them clearly spoken in every syllable that holds the power of a drumbeat, in every metaphor that breathes life into the bones of a people who are still surviving, thriving. They speak for the missing and the murdered, the ones who were silenced, to relive the pain and then release it. They plant something else in its place to grow worlds where scars are soft soil and roots are stronger than erasure. These students are not monuments. They are a movement, history, prophecy. They are the prayers our ancestors buried into the dirt to keep them safe until the world was ready for them to bloom again. And now they bloom here, now, in this poem, in their classrooms, in this sacred moment, clearly spoken. A vision. They are the ones that our ancestors wept, danced, and prayed for. They are the bridge between what was taken and what will never be taken again. Thank you.
Woo! Oh my gosh. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, my gosh. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Well, now we showed everybody what it's like to play, and they got to feel the inspiration in that way. But I want to know kind of what we do with that, where we go with that, how we take this inspiration and move it into something. Let's sit down and talk a little bit about that.
I need a seat after that poem.
Oh, see, we're all vibrating, and that's how it works. But now that they feel the inspiration, what do we do with it?
Oh my gosh, well, I would hear from you on that as well, because you seem electric right now. I think take that energy, whatever you're feeling now, find a space within yourself to bottle it up, because you will need that storage at some point in time very soon. You are all doing incredible, necessary work in an extraordinarily trying time. And so I hope, if anything, this shows you the play, the curiosity, the power that can be accessed in a moment, in a space like this, even if it's just remembering, writing your own, talking with other people about it. Bring this to a child in your life, and they'll bring it back to you.
Yes. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. I think that like we said before, there's medicine here.
Yeah.
And I think that as a society, as a people, as a community, we have a lot of healing to do. Mm-hmm. And there's scars and bruises that we carry on our hearts in that way. And there's a lot of different ways to heal from those things. Mm-hmm. And one of them is art. One of them is activism. One of them is getting out on the streets and letting your voice be heard. And I think that what we're doing here today is the road in that direction.
Yes.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. I just definitely want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for sharing your light with us in this way. And from New Mexico, I want to show you corazón and love. We appreciate you. I want you to know that America is watching you, Amanda, and we love you. We see what you do, and we appreciate you. You inspire us all in that way.
Thank you.
Now, one of the things I want to do before we finish is I talked a little bit about how I would go into detention centers and I would go into different places and I would have a way to blow these kids open to get them to express themselves. But then we got to close.
Yeah.
We got to bring back and come back and ground. So the last thing I want to do before we finish today is I want to know how you ground yourself. How you close those doors and protect yourself in that way.
I do want to rewind quickly because I was too emotional to respond. I want to say America is watching me because I grew up watching you. You, Juan Felipe Herrera, Joy Harjo, all of you are such icons. And I would have never had the moment that I had if you hadn't walked those footsteps before me. So thank you so much. Now, and to answer about how I ground myself, this is a ritual that I kind of do before performances, but I also do it when the world is insane, to kind of center myself. And it's inspired by a song of Moana, which I love. And there's a song called Song of the Ancestors. And me being a poet, I kind of rewrite songs if I'm listening to them, like, let me fit who I am in there. Yeah. And so I kind of rewrote one of the verses to go, I am the daughter of Black writers. We are descended from freedom fighters who broke their chains and changed the world. They call me. And it's a mantra that I repeat to myself before big performances. I was like trying to duck around former President Bush at the inauguration so I could do it in the bathroom, which probably looked very weird. But it's something that I repeat to myself in moments of darkness and in light. And so that would be my one recommendation, is to think about who you come from, what you stand for, and what calls you. And that will be your North Star.
Yes. And definitely, I see that and I feel that and I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your light with us in that way and inspiring us to go out there and share what we have and the gifts that we have in that way. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being such a great audience. Have a great rest of your day. I think you're good. Thank you. That was awesome. I love you. That was great.
Please give a rousing applause for Manuel González and Amanda Gorman.
Great. Thanks. Bye. Thanks so much. Thanks. Bye.
When chances and change are ahead, when there's dreaming and doing and learning to do, practice on me and get it right for you. Because we are in this together. A journey for those looking for direction and listening. We offer them bright voices, a light on the path to more. Man, what do you say when you get to share the stage with a powerhouse like Amanda other than thank you? Saludos. Gracias. I am your host, Manuel González, reminding you to follow, like, and share Pass the Sopaipillas wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.